Lady Chatterly's lover. He had to be praised. That affected him with the last thin thrill of passion beyond any sexual orgasm. And she praised it rapturously. Yet all the while, at the bottom of her soul, she knew it was nothing. "Look here," he said suddenly at last. "Why don't you and I make a clean thing of it? Why don't we marry?" "But I'm married," she said, amazed, and yet feeling nothing. "Oh, that. He'll divorce you, all right. Why don't you and I marry? I want to marry. I know it would be the best thing for me. Marry and lead a regular life. I lead the deuce of a life, simply tearing myself to pieces. Look here, you and I, we're made for one another, hand and glove. Why don't we marry? Do you see any reason why we shouldn't?" Connie looked at him amazed, and yet she felt nothing. These men, they were all alike. They left everything out. They just went off from the top of their heads as if they were squibs, and expected you to be carried heavenwards along with their own thin sticks. "But I am married already," she said. "I can't leave Clifford, you know." "Why not?" "But why not?" he cried. "He'll hardly know you've gone after 6 months. He doesn't know that anybody exists except himself. Why, the man has no use for you at all, as far as I can see. He's entirely wrapped up in himself." Connie felt there was truth in this, but she also felt that Mick was hardly making a display of selflessness. "Aren't all men wrapped up in themselves?" she asked. "Oh, more or less, I allow. A man's got to be to get through, but that's not the point. The point is, what sort of a time can a man give a woman? Can he give her a darn good time, or can't he? If he can't, he's no right to the woman." He paused and gazed at her with his full hazel eyes, almost hypnotic. "Now, I consider," he added, "I can give a woman the darnest good time she can ask for. I think I can guarantee myself." "And what sort of a good time?" asked Connie, gazing on him still with a sort of amazement that looked like thrill, and underneath feeling nothing at all. "Every sort of a good time, damn it, every sort. Dress, jewels up to a point, any nightclub you like, know anybody you want to know, live the places, and be somebody wherever you go. Darn it, every sort of a good time." He spoke it almost in a brilliancy of a triumph, and Connie looked at him as if dazzled and really feeling nothing at all. Hardly even the surface of her mind was tickled at the glowing prospects he offered her. Hardly. Even her most outside self responded. That at any other time would have been thrilled. She just got no feeling from it. She couldn't go off. She just sat and stared and looked dazzled and felt nothing. Only somewhere she felt the extraordinarily unpleasant smell of the bitch goddess. Mick sat on tenterhooks, leaning forward in his chair, glaring at her almost hysterically, and whether he was more anxious out of vanity for her to say yes, or whether he was more panic-stricken for her she should say yes, who can tell? "I should have to think about it," she said. "I couldn't say now. It may seem to you Clifford doesn't count, but he does. When you think how disabled he is. Oh, damn it all. If a fellow's going to trade on his disabilities, I might begin to say how lonely I am and always have been, and all the rest of the my I Betty Martin sob stuff. Damn it all, if a fellow's got nothing but disabilities to recommend him. He turned aside, working his hands furiously in his trousers pockets. That evening, he said to her, "You're coming round to my room tonight, aren't you? I don't darn know where your room is." "All right," she said. He was a more excited lover that night, with his strange, small boy's frail nakedness. Connie found it impossible to come to a crisis before he had really finished his, and he roused a certain craving passion in her with his little boy's nakedness and softness. She had to go on after he'd finished, in the wild tumult and heaving of her loins, while he heroically kept himself up and present in her with all his will and self-offering, till she brought about her own crisis with weird little cries. When at last he drew away from her, he said in a bitter, almost sneering little voice, "You couldn't go off at the same time as a man, could you? You'd have to bring yourself off. You have to run the show." This little speech at the moment was one of the shocks of her life, because that passive sort of giving himself was so obviously his only real mode of intercourse. "What do you mean?" she said. "You know what I mean. You keep on for hours after I've gone off, and I have to hang on with my teeth till you bring yourself off by your own exertions." She was stunned by this unexpected piece of brutality at the moment when she was glowing with a sort of pleasure beyond words and a sort of love for him. Because, after all, like so many modern men, he was finished almost before he had begun. And that forced the woman to be active. "But you want me to go on to get my own satisfaction," she said. He laughed grimly. "I want it," he said. "That's good. I want to hang on with my teeth clenched while you go for me." "But don't you?" she insisted. He avoided the question. "All the darned women are like that," he said. "Either they don't go off at all, as if they were dead in there, or else they wait till a chap's really done, and then they start in to bring themselves off, and the chap's got to hang on. I never had a woman yet who went off just at the same moment as I did." Connie only half heard this piece of novel masculine information. She was only stunned by his feeling against her, his incomprehensible brutality. She felt so innocent. "But you want me to have my satisfaction too, don't you?" she repeated. "Oh, all right. I'm quite willing, but I'm darned if hanging on waiting for a woman to go off is much of a game for a man." This speech was one of the crucial blows of Connie's life. It killed something in her. She had not been so very keen on Michaelis till he started it. She did not want him. It was as if she never positively wanted him. But once he had started her, it seemed only natural for her to come to her own crisis with him. Almost she had loved him for it. Almost that night she loved him and wanted to marry him. Perhaps instinctively he knew it, and that was why he had to bring her down the whole show with a smash, the house of cards. Her whole sexual feeling for him or for any man collapsed that night. Her life fell apart from him as completely as if he had never existed. And she went through the daily drearily. There was nothing now but this empty treadmill of what Clifford called the integrated life, the long living together of two people who are in the habit of being in the same house with one another. Nothingness. To accept the great nothingness of life seemed to be the one end of living. All the many busy and important little things that make up the grand sum total of nothingness. Why don't men and women really like one another nowadays? Connie asked Tommy Jukes, who was more or less her oracle. Oh, but they do. I don't think since the human species was invented there's ever been a time when men and women have liked one another as much as they do today. Genuine liking. Take myself. I really like women better than men. They are braver. One can be more frank with them. Connie pondered this. Ah, yes. But you never have anything to do with them, she said. Aye. What am I doing but talking perfectly and sincerely to a woman at this moment? Yes, talking. And what more could I do if you were a man than talk perfectly sincerely to you? Nothing, perhaps, but a woman. A woman wants you to like her and talk to her, and at the same time love her and desire her. And it seems to me the two things are mutually exclusive. But they shouldn't be. No doubt water ought not to be so wet as it is. It overdoes it in wetness, but there it is. I like women and talk to them, and therefore I don't love them and desire them. The two things don't happen at the same time in me. I think they ought to. All right. The fact that things ought to be something else than what they are is not my department. Connie considered this. It isn't true, she said. Men can love women and talk to them. I don't see how they can love them without talking and being friendly and intimate. How can they? Well, he said, I don't know. What's the use of my generalizing? I only know my own case. I like women, but I don't desire them. I like talking to them, but talking to them, though, it makes me intimate in one direction, sets me poles apart from them as far as kissing is concerned. So there you are. But don't take me as a general example. Probably I'm just a special case, one of the men who like women, but don't love women, and even hate them if they force me into a pretense of love or an entangled appearance. But doesn't it make you sad? Why should it? Not a bit. I look at Charlie May and the rest of the men who have affairs. No, I don't envy them a bit. If fate sent me a woman I wanted, well and good. Since I don't know any woman I want and never see one, why, I presume I'm cold and really like some women very much. Do you like me? Very much. And you see, there's no question of kissing between us, is there? None at all, said Connie. But oughtn't there to be? Why? In God's name. I like Clifford. But what would you say if I went and kissed him? But isn't there a difference? Where does it lie, as far as we're concerned? We're all intelligent human beings, and the male and female business is in abeyance, just in abeyance. How would you like me to start acting up like a continental male at this moment and parading the sex thing? I should hate it. Well then, I tell you, if I'm really a male thing at all, I never ran across a female of my species, and I don't miss her. I just like women. Who's going to force me into loving or pretending to love them, working up the sex game. No, I'm not, but it isn't something wrong. You may feel it, I don't. Yes, I feel something is wrong between men and women. A woman has no glamour for a man anymore. Has a man for a woman? She pondered the other side of the question. Not much, she said truthfully. Then let's leave it all alone and just be decent and simple, like proper human beings with one another. Be down to the artificial sex compulsion. I refuse it. Connie knew he was right, really. Yet it left her feeling so forlorn and stray. Like a chip on a dreary pond, she felt. What was the point of her, or anything? It was her youth which rebelled. These men seemed so old and cold, everything so old and cold. And Michaelis let one down so he was no good. The men didn't want one. They just didn't really want a woman. Even Michaelis didn't. Listen to the next video of Lady Chatterley's Lover. Listen to the next video of Lady Chatterley's Lover. See what happens next. You've been listening to me, Morel Benard. So, until the next video. See you then. Okay, Morel saying bye for now.